afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us in this session. Let's just wait for 1 or 2 minutes so that everyone can join in, and then we can go ahead. Thank you so much for making this happen on such a short notice.
Thank you for inviting me.
I told you last night on. So happy to see you, man.
Yeah, I've realized that if I'm not given a task, I do not do anything at all. You know, it's be your own boss. This is the worst thing ever. When there is no accountability, you are only accountable to yourself. You keep goals and then you fail to achieve them consistently. So, so right now, Mayur is my boss. I have.
Don't say that, man. I'm not anyone's boss. It's just that I'm so lucky to have you as a friend that who agrees like at 11 p.m. in the night to do a webinar again at 3 p.m. today. So that's just great of you.
That I needed to do. Like, you know, if you said, all right, take a little time, take maybe 2-3 days. And then I would have been like, all right, I mean, you know, now we have 3 days. So let's procrastinate as much as we can. This is right back to the law school days. And, you know, yeah, but all right.
It's just great moving. Like, so we have this topic of offenses. What are the offenses that happens like if you step out of your house during this lockdown phase? And personally, I've been researching on this for 2-3 days now. And let me just put across the research that I have put in, and then we can begin with your opinion, Amish. So public health falls under entry 6 of the state list, giving the states the power to legislate on all matters concerning public health within its jurisdiction. Meanwhile, entry 81 of the union list allows the center to make laws on interstate quarantine and quarantine of ports and ships. Accordingly, Section 2 of the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 provides states with the power to take all necessary measures to contain an epidemic, while Section 2A empowers the center to take measures for inspections and detention of ships. States have invoked Section 2 of the 1897 Epidemic Act, Diseases Act, to enforce orders dealing with measures to combat the virus. However, the center has taken a different route to impose the lockdown as extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. COVID-19 has claimed almost 29,000 lives around the world and has been classified by WHO as a pandemic. To curb its deadly spread, the government has invoked the Disaster Management Act 2005 and permitted various government authorities to take measures to effectively enforce social distancing. The act was legislated under the head of Social Security, which is provided by entry 23 of the concurrent list. The act defines the terms disaster broadly and includes in its ambit a grave occurrence in any area arising from natural or man-made causes or by accident or negligence which results in substantial loss of life, human suffering. Further, the occurrence must be of such a nature or magnitude as to be beyond coping capacity of the community of the affected areas. Right. The Prime Minister, being the ex officio chairperson of the National Disaster Management Authority under Section 3, Subsection 2, Subsection A of the 2005 the Disaster Management Act, has power under Section 6, Subsection 2, Subsection 1st to take measures for the prevention and migration of the disaster. Using this power, the National Disaster Management Authority has permitted various different authorities to take measures to contain the spread of virus. The guidelines for social distancing have specifically been issued under Section 10, Subsection 2, Subsection L of the Act by National Executive Committee, which is constituted under the Act to assist the NDMA, which is National Disaster Management Authority, in its efforts. It's also pertinent to note Disaster Management Division comes under the aims of Ministry of Home Affairs, making the MHA the nodal ministry in the crisis. I have a lot more, but let's just, for the time being, begin with, everyone is aware about what is the condition right now, being the lockdown that is there. But at the same time, I mean, one thing is to know about what are the conditions that are going on, what are the offenses that are there, But at the same time, I also want to know what are the various opportunities for, let's say, litigators in this time or in this hour, where a lot of things are not going as per the plan. Right. So, Amish, I want to put this question across to you. Like, how do you see this as an opportunity personally?
Mayur,
And how do you, yeah.
uh, frankly, when we talk about the lockdown and the offenses here, one aspect is the opportunities, but more than that, I see a real problem right now. The problem is the extreme and unproportional curtailment of the freedom of citizens across the country, right?
Right.
um, which of course leads us to the aspect of the opportunities for litigation to happen. But to get into the opportunities, we must go into exactly how these fundamental rights that you know judges, that jurists, that everybody talks about all the time, but apparently in India, it is very sad to say, it seems that it's just gone completely for a toss. um, and we've all read the news reports, but I'll give a personal example from just 2 days back. At around 2:30 in the night, I got a call from a friend who lives in Gurgaon, who told me that he stepped out of his house for a little while, and he was just driving to his nearest petrol pump to get petrol. And he called me up and said that, in fact, it was not even him. His friend called me up and said that, this guy has been taken by the police to the police station. We're tagging along. And he told me to call you up. So what should we do? And I asked what happened. And then they told me, this guy tells me that my friend, his friend, they were both there in the car. The police stopped them at a checkpoint, barely 300 or 500 meters away from their house. And they tell them to get out the car. Now, we've all seen videos on WhatsApp circulated or in news reports. And this exact same thing happened with my friend as well. Perhaps, and I made a post on LinkedIn about it. A lot of people have been saying that, these are idiots who don't understand that they should not be out. So they should be beaten. Jab pitega India, tabhi seekhega India, stuff like that. But when you see this happening to yourself, especially because of lack of knowledge of what is legal, what is not legal. For example, in certain districts in Punjab, it is not lockdown, but a complete absolute curfew. And in fact, a lot of videos that we've been seeing of the police slapping, kicking, beating people is of Punjab, where there is complete curfew. But again, coming back to my friend's story, they were stopped. They were told to get out of the car. They get out of the car. First and foremost, the way a good morning or a good evening happens, right? The cops take out their lathis and swing one at both of them. And these are young men. They feel agitated, but but more than that, what I feel so sad about is that everyone is so used to, is so habituated to police brutality in the name of police beatings, subjugation, derogation by the police, almost as if it is a very, very natural part of life. It is almost like saying that, when you're a child, your parents will beat you up. When you're a grown up, the police will beat you up. It does not matter. It is almost a duty of yours to submit yourself to corporal punishment by your parents when you're young, and to corporal punishment by the police when you're now. Certain legal aspects that arise again out of this situation, which is of course prevalent across the nation. Uh, in fact, even in lawyer groups, I myself was not sure whether it is actually legal or not, because even the parameters of what is legal and what is not has not clearly been laid down in a lot of situations. For example, even in Delhi, the notification which has been passed pursuant to the Prime Minister's order and the government's order,
Right.
it says that you are not allowed to go outside your house, with the exception that you can step out to go nearby to get essential commodities. Now, of course, essential commodities, the list is given,
Right.
commodities as well as services. But if you do not even state what is near the house, if you do not state that within 5 kilometers, within 10 kilometers, and of course, I understand the logistical difficulty for the government, for the local, the state government to actually set a parameter that within 10-kilometer radius is there, is your this thing. But in the absence of a clear cut directive, let's forget about having the public informed through publication and saying that we are assuming that through publication, through widespread publication. How? One medium which was accepted by courts, by the legislature, was circulation of what? Circulation through newspapers.
Newspapers.
Now suddenly the whole nation is supposed to know about a lockdown or a curfew in their own specific area, and they are supposed to obey the law, which is nothing more than the Prime Minister's words right now. Because 95% of the population, we can't assume that everybody has WhatsApp and so they'll have a copy of the notification like you or me. I mean,
Right.
we are lawyers. So the first thing that comes to our mind is, let us go on Google and look up what is the law, what is the reasoning, what's going on. For some reason, my Google started listening to me and asked me for asked me for whatever. So maybe because I said okay or something like that, and that prompts it. Anyways, so completely forgot what I was saying.
We're talking about the notifications. We being lawyers, we generally Google the notifications.
Right. Thank you. So we can't assume that this notification is available to everybody. And we see videos of people being beaten up, videos of people being hauled. Now I'm reading articles that people like the police, the more civilized police in the country, are now cracking down on civilians, on citizens by charging them under 188 IPC and then also seizing their vehicles as well. All right. Now, I had a doubt in my head. I was not 100% sure about it. So I went online and I looked up the jurisprudence on this thing. Can a car be seized and ultimately confiscated if it is proceeds of a crime under the IPC itself? Because I have seen, of course, there are acts like the Forest Act, Air Act, there is the NDPS Act, there's the Customs Act, there is several other statutes which say that if any offences occurred under the act and there is a provision, then under that then that special statute itself, if there is a provision of confiscation of vehicle by a notice given by the authority which is empowered under that act, then that vehicle which has been seized can be confiscated as well. But under the IPC, it cannot be done. In fact, the case that was discussing the question of whether a vehicle used or an object used in pursuance of a crime, the case which was being discussed by the High Court, which discussed the law on this subject, was a case of murder. So the High Court said that the allegation, or whatever you can say, the fact, because it was proved in a trial, that a man who used a lorry, his own lorry, to carry the dead body of his wife was seized by the police, and the state makes an argument that because he used the lorry as a vehicle, as a means to dispose of the body, that is why the property is liable to be confiscated. The lorry is liable to be confiscated. The High Court said no, unless there is a clear statutory provision, you cannot confiscate any vehicle under IPC. There are special statutes. If it is applicable, you do that. If not, you cannot willy-nilly say that this person has used this vehicle or used this thing, and therefore it should be done. In that case, the person was released I'm sure he was, because he was convicted, he must have gone in, he must have been awarded at least life sentence. But in any case, he was returned the lorry by the High Court. The point that I'm trying to make is, of course, one doubt that I had in my own mind was whether a vehicle can be confiscated or not, because especially because this friend faced this situation. And again, so then it becomes relevant for the entire country. Now our cars are being, or our two-wheelers are being taken away by the police. What do we do? Of course, one aspect for general public of the knowledge is general knowledge of the public is that if your vehicle has been seized by the police, then you move an application for release of the vehicle on Supardari Nama. And so you move the code, I believe it's section 452, 456, something like that, something around section 450, which talks about release of the vehicle. So you move that application before the court. Practically speaking, from experience, I can say it takes around 2 or 3 hearings before which the court grants, after which the court grants the release of the vehicle. There is also the aspect of actually getting that vehicle released. I have seen, practically speaking, the traffic police, which usually confiscates, tries to seize the vehicle initially, poses a lot of problem to the person who has taken the order as well. So practically speaking, perhaps 3 or 4 visits to the court, maybe 5 or 7 visits to the police. Right. Now, going on to the penal aspect of this kind of a situation, and I mentioned this friend's case because it is very, very interesting, for everybody over here, but more importantly, almost all situations of police high-handedness are very, very similar. And it's very interesting what I'm going to tell you now, tell you guys now. So my friend, gets a lathi beating, I don't know, once or twice. And then he asks, how can you do this? What right do you have to beat me up? You want to arrest me, or you do whatever. But what gives you the right to beat me up? So of course the police start with, police ke saath tu, aise behas kar raha hai. We'll tell you what we can do. We'll beat you up. We'll do this. We'll do that. So they have no option. They kind of haul them to the police station. Now there, my friend is asking what is going to happen, because a bigger problem with criminal proceedings is not what is going to happen, but the anticipation, because the person over there has no idea about what's going to happen. And because the police know that this person does not have a clue, they know that if we are going to say to him that we are going to keep you locked up, we're not going to let you go, we are going to arrest you, we are going to produce you before the judge now in 24 hours. Because people have heard 24 hours. They don't understand the concept of within 24 hours. What they understand is in 24 hours. So the police will say, we'll keep you held up for 24 hours, then we'll produce you before the judge, and then we'll take it from there. So, all of these things are very, very scary for an individual. And I'm hoping that anybody who is concerned, or maybe was not sure about what to do if they venture out, they can watch this video and they can be a little more informed. Absolutely. I'm not advocating that you step out of your house, but at the very least, if you have to, because of an urgency or an emergency, you should be at least knowing about the law. And for majority of the people over here, we have almost 95 participants right now. I'm sure you must be lawyers or law students. So, and this is a very valuable lesson in criminal litigation processes also. In fact, the pre-investigation stage, where now what happened was that they go to the police station. My friend says now, what is going to happen? So I explained to him the entire procedure, the process of what's going to happen with him, to put him at ease and to make him understand, to explain to him that this is the worst case scenario that is going to happen. Right. First and foremost, at 2:30 in the night, even I did not remember the jurisprudence. So I looked up. I went to my office. I came to my office right here. I picked out my IPC Dare Act. I switched to Section 188, and I read whether it is bailable or not, because that is the prime consideration when any person is charged with anything. When the police show up at your door with any allegation, first and foremost, you need to see whether the offense is bailable or not. Because if the offense is bailable, that is half the battle won in any case. Because you know that the police cannot arrest you, because the arrest that will happen on paper. And when you also know that this will happen on paper and you explain it to the police, of course, the police know it better than all of us. But when you tell the police that at the most, this is what you can do to me, the police understand that we will not be able to extort any money, put him in any fear and extort any money from this man. So I explained to my friend, this is a bailable offense. The police themselves said, we are going to charge you under 188 IPC. I said, fine. I told my friend that it's a bailable offense. So you don't need to worry about incarceration, tonight at 2:30 or 3 in the night. You don't need to worry about going to, the police lockup. They cannot keep you. What you will tell them is, all right, if you do want to arrest me, if you do want to start proceedings against me, I will call my surety, right? I'll call my surety. He will fill out the bail bond. I will not give any money and you will let me go. And of course, when the court issues summons to me, upon you completing your your investigation, submitting a charge sheet before the court taking cognizance, when the court summons me, I'll go and take part of the proceedings. You tell them this, but you tell them this extremely politely. You do not tell this to them with any sort of, air about you, because if you are, if you are polite, if you have a good demeanor with the police, they'll just do this. If you have, any sort of this thing that, this habit that a lot of people have is, dekh lenge, jo karna hai kar le, or they're aggressive with the police. That becomes a problem, and I tell everybody that despite them not being able to do something against you right now, they still have such atrocious amounts of power that under the CRPC itself, I forget the section now, any police person, anyways, one can always say that I had to arrest this person to ascertain his identity. Now, if you submit your ID proof and they toss your ID proof in the dustbin and they say, you don't have any ID proof, what are we going to do? Right? So they can still apprehend you. The proceedings that they will draw is he had no ID proof. He was uncooperative with the investigation process. We did not even know. Section 42, right? Someone just commented Section 42. That's what it is. So, that's one aspect. The other aspect is that the police, now again, someone will have to do the due diligence and tell me of which section of the CRPC under which they can anyways hold a person for 24 hours and say that we want to, as a preventive measure, we want to hold this person. And it is a problem. Like, imagine you going to the police station for whatever reason, it's a bailable offense, but yet the police say, no, we'll still keep you for minimum 24 hours. Right. You again can do nothing about it, right? You can always follow up with a writ petition before the High Court. You can file a civil suit for damages if you are so inclined against the state. You can do all these.
Done, it's very impossible in this current lockdown.
Precisely. So even if you have a wrong, the question is, what's your remedy? Right. And your remedy is also not available to you because of the fact that, 151, someone tells me. I'm not sure. I'll have to kind of double check. These are all things which kind of float in my head, which are always there in the back, but I always forget the sections and the subsections and the judgments. I'll be like, there is some ABC judgment. I don't remember the full name. Of course, it's a situation that plagues all of us. Yes. So I explained to my friend that now, so you don't need to worry. You just tell them this. If they are so inclined, they'll also take you to get your MLC done. Now, at that point of time, my friend did not tell me because it did not even come to his mind. And it did not come to my mind either. Later, much later, when he's released and he's out, he tells me that there is a bruise on that particular part of his leg where that lathi beating was given. So I thought to myself, damn, you should have you should have mentioned this fact to the doctor when your MLC was being done. Because actually what happens is the CRPC mandates upon every arrest, the accused person must be taken before a doctor, right? Now, the moment you are produced before a doctor, if something like this has happened, which of course is happening across the country right now, even if you step out to buy milk, you're getting beaten up and you die, right? But I mean, in a situation like this one, if you get a lathi beating and that bruise is there, And if the police also insist, because apparently my friend tells me the problem with the whole situation arose because apparently Gurgaon police, or that particular police station in Gurgaon, has been mandated by the higher ups, by the higher authorities, that there is a minimum number of quota of arrests that you have to do,
Right.
similar to akin to what traffic police have been given quotas. And it is very, very I mean, I can't even imagine how eager the police become. So even if somebody is, say, maybe stepping out of his house, I have a fellow lawyer who posted in a WhatsApp group of lawyers that a man stepped outside his house and he was arrested by the police in Kolkata, just because they have quotas now to fill up that minimum these many people. Of course, these are unofficial, I believe. If we file an RTI or something, there might be some sort of office communication that will be circulated. In fact, I would implore lawyers and law students over here to take inputs, take inputs from what we are trying to give you over here, and actually file these RTIs, right? File writ petitions across the country, and see where this goes. You never know, right? You can file complaints, you can send emails, audio recordings, video recordings, news articles. I did that. Someone else filed a PIL. I was planning to file a PIL myself, but someone did it, and I'm glad it saved me a little bit of trouble. So I would implore all of you to, as lawyers and law students, exercise your right of being a citizen who can go ahead and file a PIL in a constitutional court, and let us get that relief. I myself plan to pursue a number of litigations on this. Now, coming back to my friend's situation, the friend says that the police again haul him up. It's a whole 3 or 4 hour process. They intimidate, they threaten. Then they literally play good cop, bad cop.
Right.
And it's such a cliche, but
Yeah, it always gets there.
yeah, it still works, right? It still works, playing good cop, bad cop, because the person thinks, okay, everybody else is hostile, maybe this one person is helpful, so let me pay money. Of course, the question here, good cop, bad cop, is not to confess or do something like that, but it's more about giving a bribe to the police. I have seen situations, Mayur, where a person is apprehended for a small offense here, a small offense there. The police haul them up and then take money. It's a bailable offense. The police take money from them and then tell them that, all right, now because you have given us money, we are letting you go. as if as if they had a right to hold this person. In fact, another situation, it comes to my mind. This person wrote a long post on Quora about, and it's a very hundreds of thousands of views, and it got a lot of publicity back then. This was around 6 years, almost around 8 years ago. The man said that he was, he did something because of which the police hauled him up. Yes, it was. Yes, he went up to a woman and he said, he asked her out for a cup of coffee. So the woman got offended. It was I think a private hospital or something. The woman objected to it. She called up the hospital. She was a doctor and he was and funny enough, he was a patient at the hospital. So he had just come for a checkup or something. He asked the doctor out. The doctor says, "How dare you?" Calls the staff. The staff grab him, hold him down. They call the police. They call her husband. So I believe that's why the situation escalated quite a bit. And then the husband slapped this fellow, and then the police took him. And now here's the interesting part. In the post he wrote, and then I met that guy in the future, and that's how I kind of read about that post. He told me that I wrote a post on Quora, so I read that post. And he says in that post that my family had to arrange a very expensive lawyer to get me bail in an allegation of 354A IPC. So it was very funny for me. I mean, I literally laughed. Okay, why do you need a lawyer to get you bail? and you have to pay that lawyer a lot of money to get you bail, to get you out. Because now this is something that happens which lawyers capitalize upon, but I wouldn't really call it an opportunity. I would call it, um, I don't know. I have very uncouth words for these kind of lawyers. I hope that people who are watching this are not one of those lawyers. I have myself helped out clients, friends, relatives in sticky situations, and I would rather charge them money than saying than going to the police station. And it is such a it's such a sad thing to say that the police and lawyers, especially criminal lawyers who are habituated to this kind of thing, not maybe perhaps a corporate lawyer, or I can imagine a guy like Ramanuj going to the police station and standing over there and saying, no, you have to kind of leave, like
Right.
let this person out because it is illegal. I can totally imagine that happening, right? But
Right.
not a guy like him. But there are so many criminal lawyers whose practice is that they'll show up at the police station, and like the moment they see the officer, right, they have that implicit understanding, okay boss, I'll sort it out. But I'll tell this guy, because the police understand that there might be some phone or some sort of audio recorder or some sort of sting operation happening, because of which they are very afraid in asking for money, right, for asking for a bribe straight up. But they understand that if a lawyer does it, it's a very clear, it's a very transparent, ironically, it's a very transparent kind of a deal. So then the lawyer comes in, he tells the guy, all right, the police are about to lock you up, but I have cut a deal. I have told them that, you pay them like 50,000 rupees and they will let you go right now without any consequences. So the guy says, all right. Now the client, either gets someone to bring over 50,000 or goes to a nearby ATM, keeps the phone, in the police station, goes to a nearby ATM, pulls out 50,000 rupees, and then hands it over to the lawyer. The lawyer then goes to the police official, says, okay, now I've gotten 50,000, aadhe aapke, aadhe mere, which is horrendous. And so this is, and I say this because I've seen so many people do it. And in fact, just around like a month or month and a half ago, someone faced a very similar situation. He said, I'm stuck here in the police station, I did this, and now the police aren't letting me go. They are saying they're going to haul me up. They're going to put all these cases on me, whatever relevant provisions are going to be there. I showed up at the police station, and the moment I go there, I know that if I don't use the language of all these other lawyers who deal with this kind of stuff, the police are not going to be comfortable with me. The police are not going to be comfortable talking to me. So I have to kind of first build that same rapport and make use the same the words that you have to use, and then I kind of arrange the thing. And then the cop is like, sir, aapke liye kuch. I'm like, I'm good, what, fuck it, I'd rather get out, and I would rather put a make a fat bill for maybe 40,000-50,000 for my client. This situation, it was a friend, so I did not bill him anything. I'd rather charge him 40,000-50,000 and say, boss, this is my bill. Now, I understand that it might sound like too much, but if you're calling me in the middle of the night, or if you're calling me away from my work in the middle of the day, this is what my charge is going to be. I would rather be upfront about my professional fee rather than indulge in this kind of a practice. And I would implore all of you to also, think of it in this sense. I understand it's a very big problem. Lawyers are not paid their worth. It is a very big problem. I agree. But it is not universal. There are people who will pay the lawyer, their due worth, especially when the lawyer himself thinks that he is worthy of that money. Problem is that lawyers think we are not deserving of this level of fee. So they are more comfortable in asking people for, stuff like, chalo theek hai, we'll cut a deal, so we'll kind of have a thing with the police. Anyways, I have gone into in like a very long tangent. Let me come back to this thing. So now there were a couple of other questions in my friend's mind, which again will be posed to most people here as well. So my friend says, now the next thing is, okay, they have brought me back to the police station. Now they're still not letting me go. What do I do? So again, I had to explain to him that this is the script that you have to use with the police. Because what they're expecting now from you is that you will be terrified, because you've already spent around 2 or 3 hours or around 4 hours at the police station, and they can still, I mean, they'll just, tell you to sit in a corner, and they'll just go about their work, because they know that the longer you wait at the police station, the more, antsy and worried the person sitting there will become, because he is afraid that he will now be taken to the lockup inside the police station itself and be hauled up. So I explained to him that you don't need to worry. Like, they're just holding you. They're just trying to test your patience and see if they'll be able to pull out any money from you. And I told him that now, once they have registered the FIR, once they have gotten the MLC done, there is no way that they will not proceed with the case, because now it is kind of out of their hands. Once an FIR is registered, they will have to, especially in a situation like this, they will have to file their charge sheet that this is a person we met here, we apprehended here, we asked him, he did not give any sufficient explanation as to why he was out, and in violation of the lockdown orders, the prohibitory orders under section 144, or the other notification which has been passed, because I believe under 144 this person cannot be prosecuted. It will be under the other notification passed by each state saying that you should not venture very far from your house. And of course, in Punjab, there's complete curfew. I actually looked up the Punjab curfew orders as well, because I wanted to see exactly what are the words which are used. And indeed, like Delhi says, you can't go out of your house except to nearby locations for essential commodities and services. Whereas in all those districts of Punjab, they strictly said complete curfew, no going out of your house for any reason whatsoever. So there is that distinction. So I tell my friend that it's completely fine. Now there is no point in paying money to these people as well, in the hope of getting off. Another thing is that your car, of course, they say that we are going to impound the car, we are going to seize it because of the fact that it is a proceed of a crime. I fail to see in a situation like this. It is like saying that, all right, my mobile phone is also proceed of crime if I'm stepping outside the house. Even my shoes will be proceeds of the crime. So all of them should be seized by the police then. Right. Not why just my car, right? But in any case, I believe, personally, seizure, forget about confiscation orders that we've discussed, it is not legal. But even orders of seizure done or maybe seizure done by the police in a situation like this is also illegal. Right. Now, I wanted to read up on, if something has happened, of course, there is no jurisprudence right now. But news articles say that the police are saying that we have seized these vehicles and we are going to release these vehicles in a timely phased manner after the lockdown is over. Okay. Now, again, this poses a question to my mind. To what extent can we give our protectors authority over our lives? Today, people across the public opinion is that rather than prosecuting a violator under 188 IPC, it is better that you give them 2 lathi beatings. It is better that you make them, inka murga banwa do. It is better that you slap them once or twice and tell them to go back home. There is a bigger issue involved. Today, the public is in favor of the police indulging in these little corporal punishments, like, and the example given is that, in school also this was happening. In right. School also this used to happen all the time. But what I feel is that it is a very, slippery slope. If you today allow the police to do this, tomorrow, in direct contravention of your right to privacy, the police will also show up at your doorstep and will want to, step inside your house. Maybe tomorrow they'll say, the road to absurdity is long, but the first step taken itself, if it is not curtailed, will become a huge problem. Now, I have seen that the Madras High Court, I believe, took suo motu cognizance of police brutalities, of the police brutalities across the state. It is a very, very similar situation across the country right now. In any case,
action against these police officers like using these.
So yes, one thing is, of course, the remedy in law itself. Now, if a police officer is beating me using lathi force, then it is a straight up punishable offense under 323, right? Simple hurt is being caused. There are also several other offenses. Now, one thing, okay, now another thing is I've seen videos where they've been, when people have been told to kind of, again, murga ban jao, that kind of a thing, and that too in a confined space would also be wrongful confinement, right? These are all offenses which are made out, which of course, right now, nobody can imagine calling up 100 number.
Right.
It is like going to, I mean, your father beating you up and then texting your father only and saying that, I'm being beaten, please help me out. There's literally a situation like that. What do you do? Where do you go? What you want to do is to have, in case you are spirited enough to actually pursue a complaint in the future. And I'm sure a lot of lawyers and law students over here will have friends, family, acquaintances, clients who will actually say that, this was very, very wrong and I want retribution. For them, I say, you create a foundation of the case that you want to file against that particular officer or that particular group of officers. You do that by noting down their names. A lot of times, another problem that I have seen that happens is that these police officials, they know that there is a possibility that in the future some complaint may be filed. So very conveniently, the name tag that they have, they let it drop down below so that nobody can read the name tag of the police official, right?
Correct.
So that kind of a circumstance, beg your pardon?
I've seen that happening a lot of times.
Huge pain point. Yeah, they conceal it, right? So one thing, so I have, being a criminal lawyer, looking at police brutalities, police high-handedness all the time, I, meditate over what could be a solution to such sort of atrocity. Couple of things that I'm just throwing out, come to my mind, which I maybe in the future, maybe in the near future, maybe sometime down the line, I would consider doing. Perhaps, any one of you, if you want to take up that initiative. I feel that one thing is that, a direction to the police to record the whole process of, apprehending the accused person, investigating the accused person should be recorded. And, if there is a mandate like that, because everybody has a phone which has a camera, which has storage capacity, and you can kind of record all these situations. I've been looking up the use of body cameras as well, body worn cameras, BWCs they call it in the US, because we've all seen clips of the US police using these body cameras. Problem apparently is that even in the US, which is quite wealthy, the police departments are saying that it takes, it's quite expensive. The cameras are cheap, but the servers needed to store the video footage is very, very expensive. So it comes down to around $800 per officer per month, I guess. So it's quite expensive. No, I believe it's per year, $800 per year, but it's still, becomes a lot. Yes. Yeah. Even if in India we go indigenous, we make in India, we kind of do it cheap. The sheer population, the sheer number of police force also, which of course I've heard that they say that per capita it is very, very low. But still, there's a huge police force. It is very, very difficult for the police to, for the state to say, all right, every police officer will have a body-worn camera. I can understand it's going to be a little difficult. But in any case, coming back to this kind of a situation, if you want to have a redressal of this kind of a situation, you note down names. If you do not access names for reasons mentioned before, you note down the number of the police car as well. Because even the police, when they take a police jeep or a police van, they always make a note in the register at the police station itself that at this particular time on this date today, this particular car number is being taken by ABC police officials for patrolling or for this thing. So it is very possible to actually nab the exact people who were there. For example, say if you're there, you're getting beaten up like my friend and then getting arrested. It is very easy to pinpoint, okay, the arresting officer is the person who did the beating as well, or maybe his associate did the beating. But in case you want to kind of, if you're just getting beaten up and then you're let go, which is happening across the state as well now. The one thing that you can do is note down the car number. But the other thing is, rather than waiting for courts to open up, or you telling your lawyer and then your lawyer says, all right, we'll draft it and then we'll see what can be done. Anything done at a belated stage is going to be of no use. Instead, what you want to do, and I mean, I'm guessing it won't even be feasible to write letters also. What is possible though is to address all the higher police authorities in your state. So if I'm in Delhi and I get beaten up by my local police, I'll address an email to my DCP, and all the higher up authorities above that. I'll also want to include photographs, because although in a court of law those photographs might not have much impact, saying, "Why we don't have an MLC, what are we gonna do with this photograph?" But at least that photograph builds more credibility with with whoever is reading that email, that all right, there is something that has happened. Apart from that, you can go to a local government hospital. I would recommend government over private, because the law says that private hospitals, we can't be sure about what kind of MLC they've made. And of course, even they will not, the doctors will not even make an MLC for the bruises that have happened, that have happened to you, because they understand that if he's asking for an MLC, we're not even going to touch this person, because what he's asking is some proof against the police, and then we'll also be dragged into this kind of a situation. We don't want any part of it. Instead, what I would recommend is, pardon?
They want to stay out of it, right?
Yes. So what I'd recommend is you go to the doctor and say that, all right, this is the problem. Please, just write me like this thing. So then the doctor says, all right, little bruise, or kneel on the whatever, bluish this thing, which kind of shows a little bit of credibility to your complaint. Then you pursue that further, right? You can file the complaint. You can file a 156(3) under CRPC application, saying that I have, the regular process that happens. Mm-hmm. Apart from that, this is a good opportunity for lawyers as well. Individual cases of violation of your rights, right to life, right to privacy, right to, restriction of movement, all of these things, I believe to a reasonable extent, especially if you've emailed, if you have that backup, that foundation of that proof of the evidence against you, of the evidence against those police officials, you can also file a writ petition. And a lot of these writ petitions have been successful, where the High Court or the Supreme Court has said, all right, there is no doubt in our mind that the arrest was illegal or arbitrary, or there was maybe a domiciliary visit, which was also discussed in the Justice Puttaswamy case of right to privacy, because it overruled, I believe, the Khadak Singh case. I was reading up on it recently. The Khadak Singh case, which said that right to privacy is not a fundamental right, which cannot be read into the constitution if it is not there. And that case was of domiciliary visits. Again, police high-handedness, because a person was acquitted of, I believe, dacoity charges. The police used to frequent his house every day. And it became very, very difficult for him to even live or to move around, because the police would want to keep a tab on his movement. They were basically, playing like psychological warfare with this guy. So even in that kind of a situation, the court at that point of time said, a right to privacy is not there. Now the court says right to privacy is also there. So you approach the court. A lot of times the court will ask the department to conduct inquiry. If you have perhaps a video recording, you're there with your friend or a relative, and the relative makes a video of you getting beaten up, like so many other people across the country right now, that can be used as evidence. And when you submit that, the court directs the police to conduct an inquiry. And in a lot of situations, compensation has been given, and that too out of the salary of the violating officer as well. So, these are a couple of things that you can do. Now, apart from that, in terms of, so we've covered release of vehicle for the friend. Now, the other aspect is prosecution under 188 IPC. I am going to keep the other sections of the IPC. I forget the section now, 269, 270, I believe, yes. Or 271. Yes. So those sections, let us keep them aside for a moment. Let us assume that the people we are going to represent are not people like the Tablighi Jamaat who I don't know what's going on. We can only speculate. But let us keep those kind of people outside the purview of this discussion, and let us talk only about 188 IPC, because that is commonly being used to persecute the common citizen. In this situation, I have personally seen other cases where 188 IPC prosecution was done by the police. They arrest or whatever, they arrest on paper, then they conduct their investigation, and then they submit the charge sheet before the court.
Right.
The question now is, it is punishable with imprisonment as well as fine. Now the question is, does your client face, I mean, assuming that it's a client, does your client face imprisonment because of violation of 188 IPC? One thing is, of course, it's bailable, but the question is, at the end of the day, the trial also has to commence. It has to come to a conclusion. To that, I have seen a lot of situations where a person charged under 188 IPC, the day that he is summoned before the court, he pleads guilty and he is let off on fine by the magistrate.
Right.
Now, of course, the magistrate has discretion. In all likelihood, when there is going to be thousands of cases before courts, where the courts will be flooded with 188 cases, the judges, in all likelihood, just like traffic offences, just like other 188 offences, the judges will take a more benevolent view. They'll understand that in most cases, the person had a necessity or the person had a very pressing reason to leave the house.
Right.
Unless it's perhaps, those people who have symptoms of the coronavirus and then they're going out and they kind of want to spread it. In all these situations, the magistrate will, in all likelihood, will say, all right, released on fine, right? Pleads guilty, convicted, released on fine. So you can tell your clients, in all likelihood, this is what's going to happen. There is going to be precedent. But apart from that, there is also, Mayur, I can't see you. Are you okay? I believe
Just
someone else.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can tell your clients that they don't need to worry much. What's going to happen is the police is going to file a charge sheet. Court is going to issue summons to you. You can also preemptively show up in court, because if you don't want this thing dangling over your head, the day that the police file the charge sheet, because this is something that I've done in a previous case, where the person had to leave the country very, very soon. He was apprehended at the airport. There was some issue. It was a forged ticket. It was a dummy ticket, which is also a punishable offense because it's forgery. So the person was apprehended, but the person had to go back. He was a foreign citizen. He had to go back very, very soon. So in that kind of a situation, I spoke with the police officer. I requested him to, prepare the charge sheet and submit it in court within 2 or 3 days of the FIR getting registered, right? So within 2-3 days, he filed his charge sheet. That very day, I appeared before the court and I mentioned the matter, and I said the charge sheet has been filed today by the police officer, by the investigating officer. I wish to plead guilty, and hopefully my lord will release me on fine, because I have to go back to the US. It was an offense dummy ticket offenses. I had already done my due diligence. They said that the judge always releases you upon you directing you to pay a fine of rupees 20,000, 21,000. We could have gone for quashing of the FIR as well, but that would have taken months and would have been unfeasible. So in a situation like this one, again, we pleaded guilty. The same day the passport was released and the person was allowed to go back home. Now, even here, you can preemptively show up in the courtroom the day the police officer, you coordinate with the officer. The day the police officer does this, you go and you file your application. You say, I am pleading guilty. Kindly release me on fine. So the judge will be more than happy to let you go on the payment of the fine. But of course, this comes with a caveat that it is the judge's discretion. So, maybe to make an example, or maybe if there is some pressure from the concerned high court, there could be repercussions. And one reason why I am very apprehensive for clients pleading guilty, even in minor offenses, is that the IPC, even to make a mountain out of a mole, will give you maybe 3 years of imprisonment or 6 months of imprisonment for a very, very small thing.
Right.
Now it becomes a problem because the judge has discretion, right? And problem with pleading guilty is that the scope of challenging that appeal also becomes very, very limited.
Right.
I have seen several cases where the person has pleaded guilty, hoping that the court will grant only
Will be
or
considered.
impose only fine, or maybe sentence confined to the period already undergone. But the court says no, even a day more becomes a problem then, right? Sometimes the court says, all right, you are sentenced to imprisonment till the rising of the court, TRC. It happens in traffic courts, also happens in other situations. I was reading a very interesting judgment where a person was convicted, and the judge said, all right, I am going to convict you, but with 1 day of imprisonment. Now the question is, this poor person, this financially strapped person, is he going to appeal against that bad order just because he has to go to jail for 1 day? A lot of people say, chuck it, I'll go to jail for a day, man.
Yeah.
But there are people who will say, by if we if it's going to be like a week or maybe 10 days also, we want to appeal, we can't go to jail. We also don't want a record of conviction because it is a problem in several situations.
Right.
So that's also another aspect that kind of lawyers have to be mindful of. I think as a practicing lawyer, it is prudent to go to the court complex, go to the courtroom of the particular judge, talk to the reader, talk to the staff, ask them these kind of situations, what is happening. There must be similar situations in the past. Judges actually routinely face these cases filed by the police under 188, because a lot of times people are not aware. I myself was not aware. Recently, just a couple of months ago, I read this. So I was in court. I was waiting for my matter to show up, and I saw this case which happened a couple of items before my item, and the judge was saying, okay, how did you okay, so for example, I'll pose this question to the people here. Do you think it is illegal to have to host a tenant in your house without getting a police verification done? It is only the most seasoned lawyers who've perhaps dealt with a lot of cases in the past. So, Praveen says no. So at least in Delhi, and I'm sure this is there pan India if you actually go and check, but at least in Delhi, they have a notification issued by an executive magistrate, by a district magistrate, saying that it is that no landlord shall host any tenant without police verification. All right. So that was news to me as well. These are few things that nobody knows about. Now the police again, so at that point of time in the court, the judge said, "हाँ भाई क्यों रखा तुमने?" The accused person comes and says, "जज साहब, मुझे दोस्त था, पुराना था, तो इसलिए मुझे सोचा नहीं कि पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन की जरूरत है, मैंने उसको मकान किराए पे दे दिया." So I kind of sneaked around. I actually asked the police officer dealing with that particular case that if I can look at the charge sheet, if I can look at the case file. He was nice enough to show me the file sitting in the court itself. So I went through it. So there was a notification which was passed a couple of years ago, which says that this is a standing order that I don't know what they call it, standing order notification, what they call it, which says that it is prohibited. Now there is a prohibition. What is the remedy, or what is the statutory backing to that? Then they invoke 188 IPC and they say that any disobedience of an order passed by a public servant is punishable under 188 IPC. So even in this particular case, the judge fined the person, I think 500 or 1,000 rupees, and let him go. But there is a deeper question involved in these kind of situations. What is the statutory backing of a person, and of a person to to do these kind of things, right? A lot of people say it's completely all right. Theek hai, maar lo, peet lo. This is illegal what the public is doing when they are stepping outside the house. The bigger question is, without the sanctity, without the exact wording of the law, especially in penal statutes, where today we are thinking that we are inside our houses, we've got food delivery, we've got grocery delivery, we don't need to step out for anything at all. But what about the less fortunate? And what about other situations in the future where there is already precedent of lockdown upon lockdown, imposition of 144 CRPC everywhere in the local districts, a completely different situation going on in Kashmir. I was talking to somebody who's in Kashmir right now. They say that for them, it's almost like a daily life kind of a thing since several months, because this is, and now we understand how difficult it actually is. Now this becomes a issue of concern
At least
across
we have this
the
freedom of using our mobile phones and internet. Kashmir people, they were not even allowed to use their
yeah,
phones. All those things. They were
precisely.
not. It was contactless, right?
Yes. So, I mean, a person like me, I would, take up arms. I would take up arms if my phone, my laptop, if I don't have internet access. This is total bagawat. Then then the regime has to come down.
Right.
But I guess, the government understands that the one thing you cannot take away from people right now is their internet. Because if that happens, then it will truly be, then we'll go back to our age-old days of, perhaps
Yeah.
typing out a petitions on a typewriter and
Right.
going to driving up or walking up or cycling up to the Supreme Court and saying, "My lord."
So I have a question here. Like, what happens to these criminal litigations that are going there, like in this phase of lockdown? What happens to these bail applications and all those things that are there?
Yeah. So it's actually quite sad. I had multiple matters lined up myself. There was bail. There was several sort of complaints. There were several proceedings, trials which were going on. All of these have been adjourned. Uh, Earlier, around the time of the Janta curfew, they said that only urgent matters will be heard. So if
Right.
your matter is not urgent, you don't come to court. We'll give you an adjournment automatically.
Mhm.
Problem is that now everything has been shut down because a complete lockdown, and we don't know what's going to happen. There are situations, it is quite abhorrent. I have clients who are in severe distress because they are aggrieved persons. They are not able to pursue their application under 156(3) because of the fact that there is a lockdown and a delay in the investigation, delay in orders by the court to the police to file their status report in the matter, delay in the court directing the police to register the FIR and investigate the matter. All of those things are getting delayed, and in some situations it will be fatal not just to the prosecution case but to the grief of the client, which will not be redressed at all. So
Right.
these are problems which are there, but hopefully just another 10 days and we'll have at least minimal court functioning. Someone was talking about how, I just read the title of the article. I did not actually read it, which talked about, the judiciary giving up on the country on the time that it needed the judiciary the most. And I completely agree. You cannot,
Right.
in the name of public security, you know these are days where the public might not feel like this, but I feel that these are those emergency days
Right.
where, just to kind of exercise its will, the government is doing this. I don't want to get into debates about communal debates or debates about something being right or wrong. My only problem is that today the government, to a good extent, passed reasonable orders, but which have been misinterpreted by the police to say, all right, we have complete authoritarian control over how to go about managing this particular thing. Another thing to note is that I was actually looking through the CRPC just to be 100% sure about whether the police can use force against a person who is not obeying an order. The closest thing I could find was section 129 clause 2 of the CRPC, which says that if there is an unlawful gathering of 5 or more people and the police command them to disperse, and despite that they are not dispersing, then the police are allowed to use reasonable force to disperse that crowd, including arresting the persons.
Mhm.
Nowhere is beatings, lathi, slapping permissible, has been envisaged. Now, if the statute does not provide anything, so forget about these small situations. The jurisprudence which has evolved over now centuries in this country is always clear on this aspect. If the statute does not provide for something, you cannot do that.
Right.
Criminals have been acquitted because the statute says no, the particular process of investigation or the method, the officer who was not empowered to conduct that investigation under the act, or whatever it be, if the process is not followed, it is a good enough reason to let the accused person go, because let 1,000 guilty go unpunished. Let not one innocent person go to the gallows.
Right. That's what we are right on. Yeah.
I think it's it's 4:10 already. You think we should wrap it up? I mean, I honestly think that this was one of the situations that I was the least prepared, and I'm not sure whether
Right.
I actually was able to.
I believe you shared the wealth of knowledge that you have, and you've been sharing it over and over again. And I mean, I'm very much thankful to you for all of this, right?
Thank
I
you.
appeal everyone who's there in the session to rate us on a scale of 0 to 10, so that we get to know how do you feel about the session. Also, I'll put down my mobile number for your reference so that you can reach me anytime. And I mean, we are planning to put all of this in our criminal litigation course that we have at LawSikho as an example of practical exercises that we have been doing. And probably, yes, you can get in touch with me if you are looking to do the same. Plus, we have a course on legal practice management, which talks about how to get clients in this lockdown situation also. And we have been doing a lot of research at LawSikho, how our students can get more and more clients, and how they can engage their previously the already existing clients to handle these situations and all those things. Yeah. So I'll just put down my number for anyone to contact me. Yeah. So really good insight. Thank you, Amish. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mayur. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in and listening to us and listening to me blabber off my mouth. I'm sorry, I think I went just a little too far, but apologies.
No
thank
problem.
you all for coming here.
Thank you so much, and hope to see you again really soon.
See you soon, I'm sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.